everyone. Thank you so much for joining the webinar today. I am very excited today because we have our good friends and partners with HSA Bank on the call to show us how their strategies can add value and revenue for this year's enrollment season. So without further ado, I will go ahead and pass it over to our two main speakers of the day. We have Patrick Schmidt and Mike Kouroumilakis. Hopefully I said that right. And they're both the VPs on the retirement channel. So I will pass it over to you, Patrick.
Fantastic. Good afternoon, Leah. Well, good morning for some people anyway. Great to be back here with the RPAG team yet again. My name is Patrick Schmidt, as Leah said, Vice President of the Retirement Channel here at HSA Bank. I work with retirement plan advisors throughout the country to get them going on the HSA Advisor Plus channel. And I'm joined by my coworker, Mike Kouroumilakis. Mike?
Yeah, hi everybody. Again, appreciate you taking the time to join us today. For those of you that aren't, too familiar with HSA Advisor Plus or HSA plans in general, our goal here is to kind of give you a little bit of an education on what's going on in the marketplace, how it's growing, and how HSA Bank has rolled out a product specifically designed for the retirement plan advisor.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Mike. So really, the point here today is to for the folks that maybe haven't joined us before, get you up to date on what's going on in the HSA world. For those that have joined us again, welcome back. We'll give you an update on what's going on, but then additionally, we're going to talk a little bit about enrollment season for HSAs and medical plans and what you need to know to go ahead and get your messaging out and bring some of those plans on board. So without further ado, if you can see my screen, here we'll go over our agenda quick. Again, really a review of the HSA environment, what's been going on lately, and then Mike is going to talk about the HSA Advisor Plus platform, some differentiators, how it can really help your practice and your plan participants and your plan sponsors, and then really how to get started. And it's really easy, and we'll go through it with some best practices as well that we've learned from other advisors throughout the country. So really, what is the current HSA environment? As we know, a lot of folks out there are struggling. They don't have a lot of money saved for emergency expenses. Quite frankly, the number one cause for personal bankruptcy in the United States is medical bills and medical debt, and HSAs really can be a solution to that. So with, again, inflation, we've gone over it again and again, that's really making it tough to save. So if they don't have that medical savings, it just creates a bigger gap in that wealth spread in the health and wealth industry, and then with those emergencies coming up. So certainly the need is there, and this just illustrates it again. And we realize this is a gargantuan number, but an average 65-year-old couple retiring today, between the two of them are going to need over $600,000 in medical needs in retirement, and that's premiums, deductibles, all your out-of-pocket, et cetera, et cetera. It can also include nursing homes, care facilities, all of that. But that's a significant amount of money that they're going to need in retirement. It's just no one's really talking about it. And we want to make sure that through retirement plan advisors, we're getting the word out there to let people know, hey, you really need to save for this, both for now and in retirement. So we always talk about our calculators and saving for retirement. How much am I going to need? When can I retire, et cetera? This is just another thing that people should really save for in retirement. And the HSA is really a solution that can take care of all of that. It's dedicated, it's individually owned, and it's really portable at any given time. The triple tax advantage on the contributions, the earnings, and the distributions, nothing can beat that. And those funds are yours for life. There hasn't been a study on this in a few years now, and I'm hoping one comes out again, but the latest survey that I saw was, I believe it was Fidelity surveyed account holders, and they asked them, what happens to your HSA balance at the end of the year? And 47% of them said, oh, that money goes away, I lose it. They were confusing it with an FSA, and we see that very commonly in the HSA world, is they'll confuse it with an FSA. So because of that, people, they may not save in their HSAs. They certainly won't invest in their HSAs, and they might not contribute as much as they potentially could in that HSA because they just don't know that money is theirs forever. So once you put that money in the HSA, it is yours. It rolls over year after year after year. And with the triple tax advantage of the HSAs and some of the amazing investments out there, it's really unbeatable. It's really second to none out there. We talk about what we're going to need in retirement in terms of medical needs, but it's also a great retirement savings vehicle. After age 65, some of the penalties go away. So really, you have that triple tax advantage, but let's say you're not using on medical. Let's say you're not saving your receipts. You can still use that money with no additional penalty. And again, we want people to invest it. We want to save and invest. Spending's great with the HSA, but if you can save and invest, you can really make a lot larger nest egg going forward. This is a really good indicator of the HSA world and what's been going on. You'll see in the blue it's deposits, and in the green it's investments. But look what's been going on over the years. I've been with HSA Bank now for about 3.5 years. So 3.5 years ago, we were over in here, and we saw the projections year over year over year. This is what our projections did show, was that the continued growth and really an exponential increase. That's exactly what's happened. And when we look into the future in 2023 and 2024, we're looking at it's an incredibly fast-growing industry. This year in the HSA world, we haven't bought any cakes and celebrated yet, but we're cresting the $100 billion mark in terms of an HSA industry. And HSAs are crossing that threshold faster than IRAs, 401ks, et cetera. So HSAs are doing an amazing job in allowing people to save, invest, and have it completely tax-free. It's the best instrument out there. So you can see the adoption, how much it's been taking off over the years. And this just highlights just the investment portion of it and how in the last couple of years, it's really taken off because, again, the word has gotten out there that you can save and you can invest. So now people are actually putting that to good use. Many people that we know of, their HSA is completely an investment vehicle. So you max out every year, pay for your medical out of pocket, and then harness the power and that completely tax-free power of the HSA investment. It's really second to none. And you can see how much it's really been taken off in the last few years now that we're getting the messaging out there. Some of the dirty secrets of the HSA industry really before we came along was there's over 2,200 HSA providers out there. Many of them do not allow you to invest because they just don't have that capability. Here at HSA Bank, we encourage investments. So you can invest in your HSA as well you should. But in addition to that, let's say there are those providers out there that do let you invest. Many of them are going to stick you an expensive A share. So even if you can invest, there's a huge amount of fees in place. So they're really going to put some barriers out there. Because of HSA Advisor Plus, you're going to see the amount of institutional funds, zero rev share funds, et cetera, that are out there that you can take advantage of and really get over that fee threshold. So this is another great indicator of what's been going on. So some of the folks out there said that, well, it might be great if you can invest, but what happens is people just don't save cash in their HSA. And what you can see is when you do save and invest, your deposit account actually goes up even more than if you just had deposited a loan. So you're able to save for those emergencies and have that cash on hand. Of course, you can liquidate your investments at any given time, but we have found that the people that do choose to invest not only have that investment balance, but they're going to have a higher cash balance as well for those medical emergencies, medical bills, medical debts, et cetera. And this just shows the power of an HSA and a 401k put together. You have your family HSA contribution there and your individual 401k and your catch-up contribution. But as many people don't know, HSA has a catch-up contribution as well. Now, this is something that I would change if I was ever put in charge of HSAs in the IRS, but the catch-up age for HSAs is age 55. I'm not sure why it's 55 instead of 50. I would change that, but for our examples, we look at an age 55-year-old individual. Between the 401k and the HSA with the catch-up in there, there is a significant amount of savings you can put together. And again, triple tax advantage, you just can't beat it. This is a slide we put together because we have had a number of advisors early on that said, well, this is great. I would love for my participants to save and invest in the HSA. Isn't this just going to cannibalize my retirement plan business? And really what we saw here is it's definitely not the case. Almost 90% of people either keep their retirement plan contributions where they're at or increase it. Now, initially you might think, how is that possible? You're just taking a pie and you're, cutting it up into smaller and smaller pieces. But what happened is when we started talking to participants in the study and researching it, we found that what happened was when people found out about the HSA and the power of it and the investments in it, they said, well, wait a minute, I should be saving over here, but am I saving enough for retirement? So it actually caused them to sit back and say, wow, am I saving enough for retirement? I should actually contribute more for retirement and do the HSA. So instead of taking the same pie and dividing it up into more pieces, we divided it, but we made the pie bigger. So the retirement plan either stays where it's at or actually increases in terms of participant contributions. So as an advisor, overall, you're going to see the total buckets of money increase. That's a really powerful feature of the HSA, is that it actually makes people think a little bit about, okay, what's going on with my HSA? What's going on in my retirement? Are there changes I can make, et cetera? Because as you know, one of the challenges of being an advisor is getting people to think about their total retirement package. And people just don't wake up any random day and say, geez, am I saving enough for retirement? It has to be forced by something. And thinking about the HSA is yet one more thing that can really put people in that mindset of thinking about the HSA. And by the way, I should mention, if you have questions along the way, put them in the Q&A. We'll absolutely try to answer them as they go, or et cetera. We can answer questions certainly at the end as well, but if you do have questions in the meantime, please put them in there and we'll try to address it. We want to make sure we're capturing all of the pieces of information that are important to you. And then also, this was another, and again, these are kind of best practices and questions we've learned from advisors like yourselves. Some of the folks out there will ask, well, isn't saving and investing in HSA just for really highly compensated employees only? And the answer is no. And it's because of the unique features of the HSA where you can use it for short-term, moderate, or long-term savings. Maybe you're going to be having a child and you need to save up some money. You can just throw that into the core HSA. Hey, I've got I'm going to have some expenses down the line here. Maybe I'll do it in moderate, and then of course long-term, maybe for nursing care, savings in retirement, et cetera. And again, you can pass this along tax-free to your spouse. So that's another great, that's another great feature of the HSA. And the other part of it too about all audiences, is it just for the highly compensated? We really look at it in terms of 3 different audiences. So you've got your entry-level employees, et cetera. They're trying to save in any way, shape, or form that they can. They want to make sure there's not too much month at the end of their money, and they're looking for additional savings when possible. We always stress, again, you saw in the first slide, very few people have $1,000 or more saved for an emergency, and many of those emergencies are going to be medical emergencies. If you can save just a little bit in that HSA, that can really offset it. Maybe over the course of a year, maybe do just under $100 a month. You can save $1,000 in a year for that unexpected medical emergency, and you can do it in the HSA. What we'll see is many of the participants out there, again, will use that are more entry level in that first group. They're going to use it for unexpected medical expenses, and that's perfectly fine. Better than putting it on a credit card and paying 25% interest, if you can kind of pay yourself through that HSA. So kind of your entry-level employee, this is a great way to save for unexpected savings. Maybe they have an employer contribution. Maybe they have an employer match. Those all can be good ways to save for those unexpected emergencies. And I should also point out too, whatever you have in that cash HSA account with HSA Bank, we are an actual bank. So the funds that you have in the core cash HSA account for on-demand funds, that is FDIC insured. So that's yet another guarantee when you are doing some emergency savings, you've got that added perk in there for FDIC insurance. Then we look at really kind of the middle group of employees. These are some folks that have some money at the end of the month, maybe are looking for some additional savings. They might have paid off some student loans. They might be saving for their child's college, and they have some money left at the end of the month. This is just something, again, monthly, you save a little bit of money and you can start investing it. Tax-free forever, they might be starting to look at some of those features saying, okay, I'm looking for other tax advantages here. Maybe I'm already maxing out my Roth IRA. This is another tool to go ahead and put into there. And then we finally look at the higher end, maybe all of your HCEs, et cetera, et cetera. those folks are looking for any sort of tax break they can possibly get. They absolutely should be maxing out the HSA every single year, investing every penny of it, and getting that tax savings in there. Keep in mind, there's absolutely no income limit for HSA plans. So you can make $2 million a year and you're still eligible to make that HSA contribution. So this is very attractive for those highly compensated employees, again, looking for any sort of tax break they can possibly get. The HSA works extremely well for those folks. So really, any audience you're looking at has some sort of a need for the HSA, and it may not be 100% invested when you're looking at more entry-level employees, but the higher up you really go up the food chain, the more it makes sense for them to max it out and invest it every year. Mike and I speak with retirement plan professionals every single day, and many times we'll come across at the end of a conversation that advisor or that DCIO will say, "Hey, by the way, I got a question on my personal HSA. Can I really invest in mine? It's with it's with this company, et cetera, et cetera." We find out that they're not maxing it out or not making a contribution, or many times they'll say, "Well, geez, I really should be doing this." So again, it's one of those things that can be easily overlooked, but over time, the advantages of being in that HSA can make a whole lot of sense. So that's really what's going on right now in the HSA marketplace. We are going into the open enrollment season. One of the reasons that we scheduled this webinar now is because employers are making decisions on the HSA plans right now. Essentially, the way that HSA plans had been sold in the past was a benefits broker, a benefits consultant, and you know many of them, would be going out and finding the best medical plan fit for their plan sponsor, and that's great. We encourage that. What will happen, though, is they'll say, "All right, we're going to move from United Healthcare to Blue Cross Blue Shield because we found better value there." That's great. And they'll say, "Well, do you have an HSA provider that you prefer?" And if someone doesn't, they just go to whomever that benefits consultant chooses, or maybe the check the box default for that medical company. You can choose any HSA provider you want as a company. It's just if you don't make that decision, it gets made for you. That's historically how those conversations were had. Now we're really changing it where you as a retirement plan advisor are empowered to have that conversation with a plan sponsor and say, "Hey, I have this offering. I can offer you a custom set of funds. They're low-cost, high-performing funds. Is this something you're interested with?" And then you have the conversation with us and with the plan sponsor, and we get them on board instead of just every year or every 2 years turning that HSA to a different provider. Maybe the money gets spent down, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a great time to go out and have that conversation with all of your plan sponsors. It's going out and having that conversation because, again, right now, many plans are having that HSA discussion with the benefits folks. And keep in mind, the benefits brokers and the benefits consultants, they're not paid on the HSA. You can get paid on the HSA, and Mike will go into detail on that. So right now, the benefits brokers and the benefits consultants are doing an unpaid chore finding an HSA provider. If it's in your court, you're literally taking an unpaid chore off their hands. So with that, I want to make sure Mike has plenty of time to go over how exactly does HSA Advisor Plus work, what are some of the benefits of it, et cetera, et cetera. So with that, Mike, I will turn it over to you and how the HSA Advisor Plus platform works.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks, Patrick. So, so to start, let me, Patrick covered a little bit, but I'll kind of retrace back. Traditionally, HSAs have gone through benefits brokers. And the benefits brokers don't put too much care into it. It's really an add-on to the healthcare plan. That's where they make the majority of their money. So knowing that when companies traditionally pick an HSA provider, there's not a lot of flexibility for the investments because the benefits broker is not securities licensed, so they're not going to get involved in that. So through the traditional route, people have kind of been stuck with single fund families, expensive funds, and not a lot of flexibility. You'll be surprised at the amount of HSA plans that are out there in the marketplace today where participants don't even have the ability to invest. So that was one problem. The second problem was education. Patrick went over a lot of the benefits of being in an HSA plan. The reality is most advisors, I don't want to say most, I'll say at least a good part of the advisors out there don't understand the true benefits of an HSA. And a lot of participants that are in them don't understand all the benefits that they have. As Patrick kind of touched upon, there are certain benefits to being in an HSA versus a 401k. The money works very similarly until you get to retirement age. The difference in the HSA is there's no required minimum distributions like there are in a 401k plan. So there's an additional tax advantage where you can let your money sit there, stay invested if you don't need it. So what we impress upon advisors and participants is understanding once you've maxed out your match on your current 401k, it almost, and in some cases does make more sense to make sure your HSA is maxed out before you put another dollar into the 401k. Understanding not everybody doesn't be able to afford that, but that education about how HSAs work are really lacking. So what we did at HSA Bank and what our belief is, we really feel that the HSA does belong with the retirement plan advisor. Major reason for that is because of the investability of the HSA assets. So what we designed is a product where advisors can design a custom open architecture lineup on the HSA plan. And nobody wants to put all that work and effort in to do it for free. So we've also created a compensation model whereas advisors can get compensated for the work that they're doing. It is asset-based compensation if you want it to be, right? That way the participants pay for it, or you have the ability to do a flat consulting fee directly with the plan sponsor, depending on who you're working with, who your RA is, however you want to handle it. But if it comes asset-based, we take it right out of the invested assets and then we pay the advisor or your back office directly. Open architecture fund lineup. We currently have, when we put this slide together not too long ago, it was 10,000 funds. We're probably north of 12,000 funds now, and you can use any fund family you want. There's no restrictions. R6 shares, index funds, anything you want. So the framework has been put in place now for the retirement plan advisor to be able to go out and market this to their existing book of business, right? That's the low-hanging fruit. And in the day and age of fee compression, right, a lot of plans, especially decent-sized plans, are getting benchmarked every 5 years. We see a lot of advisors that are having to come down off what they're getting compensated for all the work that they do right now just to stay competitive, because guys come in, they try to undercut you just to win the business, and you end up having to cut your fee just to keep the book of business. So this gives you a second way to create an additional revenue stream to do the work that you're already doing, which is the investment work on creating the lineup and then doing the education. You're doing education on 401k right now, adding education about HSA. You know, it's just an extra couple minutes in the day-to-day meetings that you do or the group meetings that you do with your plans. So that in a nutshell, I know I'm trying to simplify it, but that's how HSA Advisor Plus works. You're able to add a second line of business to your existing business. It's also, Patrick, you can move to the next slide if you want. It's also a great way to prospect new business. As you're going through and meeting with companies that you're trying to bring in new 401k plans, one competitive advantage that you have and one conversation that you can have that current advisors aren't having is, what are you doing with your HSA assets in your HSA plan? What investments are currently available in your HSA plan? You'll be surprised how many times you're going to find plan sponsors that are going to say to you, we don't have investments in our HSA plan, or I didn't know we could even invest in our HSA plan. There's a door opener for you to get in there and say, I'm already your 401k advisor. I am working with HSA Bank. They have a product where I can customize the investments on your HSA lineup to even match what you're currently being offered on the 401k plan, right? That makes things a little bit easier for participants and plan sponsors. Now they're not looking at two sets of investments. They're not super confused. They have similar investments that are in HSA and 401k, and they can, you know, obviously mirror what they're doing in one, or they can, you know, mix up their allocations or percentages or be more aggressive in the 401k, more conservative in the HSA. It just gives you a lot of options, but it's a great add-on for the 401k advisor that's already has all those relationships in place. That's why we felt we needed to put this product out there, which has been in the marketplace, you know, for not that long, a couple of years now. And we're seeing huge traction in this year as far as new partners wanting to come on board, right? I know, you know, RPAG is a huge group that we're dealing with. Specifically, we have a deal we've put in place with NFP right now. This is available to all NFP advisors. I know there's a lot of overlap between the two. So we think this is the time to strike right before this is commonplace in the marketplace. Now's the time to approach new clients that you're trying to bring in the door to prospect on. Your existing book of business is going to be your low-hanging fruit, where you can go and have the conversation and say, do you have an HSA plan currently? Can I take a look at your investments? I love to do analysis for you, similar to things that you, as the advisor, are currently doing on the 401k plan. And Patrick, you can go to the next slide too. The third thing that we think this really provides is a great defensive strategy for you to retain your existing book of business. Like we said, it's a competitive marketplace. Advisors are always trying to compete for business. This gives you almost a second anchor to your existing clients when they're able to say, you know what, we like Joe Schmo. He manages our 401k plan. He's now also the manager of our HSA plan. He comes in, he educates all our participants and all our clients on both. That's something that all these other advisors out there aren't really doing right now. They're not talking about HSA. They might not even be schooled enough on HSA to have that conversation that you've already had with the clients. You've already had, with the plan sponsors. You've already had with their plan participants. So to get started, again, what we would reiterate is go talk to your current plans. Ask them about their HSA. Ask them about their HSA investments. That would be step one to kind of get your feet wet and get started on this. Patrick and I split the country up. I cover the eastern half of the country. Patrick covers the western half of the country. Post this call, we'll be able to get you our contact info. We'll get you the sales map so you can reach out to either one of us with these opportunities. And then as we get into the end of the year and beginning of next year, you're going to start to have those plan reviews with your clients about changing investments, about monitoring performance. That's another great time to have the conversation since you're already in front of them. So I'll pause there. I think we've given you a good idea of what's going on in the HSA landscape, how our product works, and why it's great for retirement plan advisors. And if anybody has any questions or is throwing anything in the chat, we're happy to answer anything for you right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Mike. So while we wait for any sort of questions to come down, certainly, if you think of some of those, we can answer those now. But just as a review, there's a need for HSAs out there because, again, there's a lot of need in retirement for medical savings. We talked about the $600,000 plus needed for the average 65-year-old couple retiring today. We talked about the fact that a ton of people don't have that $1,000 saved for an unexpected emergency, and the fact that medical bills and medical debts are the number one reason for personal bankruptcy. And the HSA is a great solution to that. One of the reasons that HSAs are really finally starting to take off, as Mike had said, is because now advisors are starting to have those conversations with plan sponsors, with participants, et cetera, and you're really getting the word out there. Before HSA Advisor Plus and some of the other platforms like it, no one was incentivized to have those conversations unless they just kind of did it on their own. We really changed the game with that, incentivizing advisors to have those conversations, to bring something to the market. As I had said, you're able to provide something that a lot of other people can't. You have with our HSA Advisor Plus, you're actually allowed to invest. Again, many platforms, you're not allowed to invest at all. You're going to be invested in some very low cost shares as well, because those are available to you. For those NFP advisors out there as well, there's a differentiator for you. For NFP advisors only, NFP has created a custom lineup for you. So you already have that lineup created for your clients. It is managed by NFP at the home office. You're able to go ahead and offer that custom lineup to your plan sponsors and participants. No one else has access to that, by the way. That's just NFP only. So that's yet another advantage you have. If you're not an NFP advisor and you're just an RPAG advisor, you can create your own lineup, of course, from our open architecture platform, which Mike talked about. So really the needs there, the solutions there, and like Mike said, how in the heck do you get started? It's literally as easy as a conversation. You talk to your plan sponsors and just ask them, do you have an HSA plan? And if so, great. Do you know if you can invest in it, and how do you like your investments? 90-some% of the time, they're probably not going to know what the investments are or if they can invest in it. And as Mike had said, that's the great time to have a conversation and say, well, great, I've got a specialist. I'll bring them into the equation. That's when you contact Mike and myself, and I'll put our contact information up on the screen shortly as well. And Leah and the folks at RPAG certainly have that information. But All you have to do is find that out if there's some interest from your plan sponsor, and you call us up, and we'll really take it from there. We'll have a conversation, as Mike had said, ourselves, you, the client, and then we'll also have our regional salesperson in that meeting as well. We have 30 salespeople all throughout the country, all regionally located. So we have specialists that'll be on those calls. Many of the times that we have those calls, we'll find out there's other issues with the plan. As I said before, HSAs really haven't been an intentional piece of the puzzle. Now we're making it intentional. And this is a great time when they're talking to a specialist to say, hey, by the way, our files aren't going through our HSA provider, or we can't get a hold of anybody for customer service. We can't get this, we can't get this. That's when some of those pain points come up and you go, okay, well, we can fix that. Here's the solution. So many times you're helping out those human resources professionals saying, hey, we've got a solution here for you. You're sending in 10 different files. We can get you to send in one, et cetera, et cetera. So we're taking something that's a pain point, that's always been a pain point, and making a solution for it. I was speaking with an NFP advisor in, I believe it was Texas last week, who said, yeah, HSAs always seem to be a pain point with my plan sponsors when I bring it up. This is the solution. Again, we're just trying to help people, trying to help out those plan sponsors in any way, shape, or form that we can. So bring it up and have that conversation. And as Mike said, add it to your quarterly or your annual plan reviews. That's a good time to bring it up. Hey, by the way, we also have this HSA solution. Go ahead and check that box off. I always talk about too, if you just had your plan review, reach out and do a thank you campaign. At one of my prior firms in the retirement plan industry, we did this all the time. We had a calling effort several times a year where we literally called up every plan sponsor, thanked them for their business, and then asked if they had any questions, et cetera, for us. This is another great way to do it. I mean, everybody likes to be thanked for their business. So have that phone call, thank you for their business, and say, hey, by the way, I have something new. Is this something you might be interested in? So just doing that and getting the word out there, that's really all you have to do. We can really take it from there. And there's only two things that are required for you to work with us, and one thing that's optional. Number one, and these are repeats we've talked about, and number one, choose your lineup. And if you're an NFP member, that's already been done for you. So that's already checked off. The second thing, choose your compensation. It's all flexible compensation. So whatever basis points, et cetera, you want on a per plan basis, we'll go ahead and take care of that. So choose your lineup, choose your compensation. And then the optional thing is education. This is something that can really make a difference. It's totally optional. As Mike had said, we've got webinars, we have videos, we have calculators. All of that is available on our website, but also we can help you as advisor have some of those conversations with the participants. And when I say education, I'm saying a very, very basic HSA 101. Let's say you have an hour-long webinar or in-person group meeting. If you have an hour, 5 minutes on the HSA, that's all you have to do. 5 minutes on the HSA, you will take someone from a knowledge level 0 or 1 to about a 9 in 5 minutes. And it's literally by going through a handful of things we talked about before. Hey, you have an HSA with us, that money is always yours. It doesn't expire at the end of the year. 47% of the people are probably, that's going to be news to them, because they're going to say, wait a minute, I thought my money went away at the end of the year. So you're going to teach someone right there by saying the money's always yours, it doesn't go away. By the way, you can invest in this HSA, and here's the investments that can go in. It's tax-free forever, and you can use that medical. 5 minutes gets all of that done, and you can really make a big difference with some of these participants, because again, they've been getting this benefit. They just haven't been taking advantage of it because it's not something that's been intentional before. So it's really important to get that point across. So choose your lineup, choose your compensation, and any sort of education is certainly icing on the cake. So we realize that's a whole lot of information. One of the reasons, again, we want to do this today is because decisions are going to be made soon on HSA. So now is the perfect time to go to your plan sponsors and find that information out. I guess before I go any farther, and let me put our contact information up on the screen. It's right there. You just have to email either one of us and we'll get it to the right person. And I'm sure Leah can share this as well. And all of this information is available to you with RPAG. But Leah, did we have any questions from anyone in the audience on our content today? And I'll add one more thing in there as a final thought. This is probably the number one question Mike and I get on a lot of our advisor meetings and advisor calls. right at the end of the meeting, someone will point out, kind of raise their hand and go, by the way, how much do people get paid on HSAs? How much do advisors charge in compensation? Like we said, it's still a little bit of the Wild West, but that being said, I would say almost 90% of the advisors we work with charge between these two kind of goalposts. And it's still a wide range, but here's where most advisors fall: between 20 and 60 basis points of the asset, the asset. So your asset-based fee will be between 20 and 60 basis points, again, just on the invested balances. That's where we see most people fall in terms of the asset-based fees. You can make it whatever you want. And in fact, let's say you have 100 different clients with us, you can have 100 different fee arrangements too. So let's say you have a client you're doing education for, but maybe one you don't. Maybe one has more accounts, one has less. You can truly tailor those fees to that relationship, and you can change them at any given time too. So that's the number one question I was asked. I just wanted to make sure I got to it in case no one asked it. But yeah, that's kind of where we've seen it go to, et cetera.
Yeah, Patrick, and I would add to that, the other thing we do is we do see advisors use this sometimes as a retention tool. As I mentioned before, where you get in a competitive situation and they want to keep that plan on the books, we have seen advisors that go out and say, I can manage your HSA plan and I will do it for no charge, right? We understand most of the assets are going to be in the 401k plan. So you do have the option to say, I want to run the HSA plan, but I want to do it for zero comp as a favor to keep the existing 401k business, or as a means to prospect and win this new 401k plan I'm trying to get. Part of my marketing campaign to them is going to say, let me get your 401k business. I will do your HSA plan for free. So something to think about, as we have that comp conversation. It's nice to get that extra revenue stream, but you can use it in other ways too to help you win and retain business.
Yeah, and winning, trying to go out and win a retirement plan by leading with the HSA, again, is an amazing strategy. It's something that we've taught in webinars before. When you're having those initial conversations with your prospects, literally one of the very early questions, just ask, hey, by the way, do you have a high deductible health plan? And when they say yes, because most of them will, just ask them, well, hey, how's the investment lineup that the retirement plan advisor is managing for you? And most of the plan sponsors, as Mike said, are either going to say, I don't know, or you can invest in it. And right away, you're going to go ahead and differentiate yourself from the current advisor on that plan and probably any other prospective advisors on that plan with that one question. And very quickly, you're going to realize, okay, my current advisor never mentioned this. And that's, again, Mike had talked about the defensive strategy about going to all of your plan sponsors right now. My current advisor never mentioned it. Why not? And if they didn't mention that, what are all the other things in the retirement plan that I'm missing out on? So it's another reason that you can win retirement plan business by leading with the HSA. And I do see that we do have a question in difference between individual contributions and family contributions and what constitutes a family. Thank you for that question, James. So there's really two ways. It goes back to the high deductible health plan that the HSA is based off of. So when you have a high deductible health plan, you can either join it as an individual or as a family. Individual, again, you're just covering yourself in terms of that medical plan. And a family, you're covering yourself and either a spouse or a family, anyone else other than yourself. Individuals, I believe, and I might be confusing it with 2023 because the contribution limits go up every year, but I believe 2022 was $3,650 as an individual is the maximum contribution you can make. And as a family, it's, was it 68? I'm trying to think, but $3,650 and then double that, so $7,300. Those are the contributions you can make. So that's the difference between an individual and a family. It's based off of the high deductible health plan. And then, of course, if you're over age 55, remember, don't know why it's 55 instead of 50 with HSAs. But if you are over age 55, you can make that $1,000 catch-up contribution in addition to that as well. So individual plan or family plan is going to determine what your HSA contribution is.
Well, thank you so much, Mike and Patrick.
Yeah, no, thank you guys. Thanks everybody for jumping on board. If any of you are going to be at the National RPAG meeting in California, Patrick and I will both be there. So any in-person questions or opportunities you're working on, feel free to track us down there and happy to have a conversation.
Awesome. Definitely would love to see you out there. Thank you so much, Mike and Patrick, for presenting today. This was definitely a very informative, and we're glad to have you on the RPAG and NFPE team.